There we go. So, welcome. Thank you everyone for showing up. This is a follow-up call for the South American UX Bootcamp. And the purpose of this call, it is the 14th of March. We're already halfway through March in 2025. The purpose of this call is that we had a UX bootcamp in South America just about 2 3 weeks ago. I'm not very good in terms of time, but the purpose of this call is to just get everyone together once again and to open the floor for questions. Now, we might not be able to answer all of your questions on this call, but by asking questions, we're also doing research to understand what questions, Rubens is here, what questions participants have after the boot camp so that we can prepare ourselves for future boot camps and already answer these questions, before they come up. So yeah, the floor is basically open to everyone to ask any questions that you might have. We might not have the answers to those questions straight away, and if we don't, we will just come back to you or take some notes and agree to come back to you at a later time. You have Lucas here on the call, you have Christoph, and you have Dulcie. So we're all here to support you. We're very grateful to see everyone again. This was such a nice bunch of people. It was such a joy to see all of you enjoy each other so much and get on with each other so much. And some of you even mentioned you want to maintain friendships with each other. So this was such a nice boot camp to facilitate. So yeah, the floor is yours. It's been something like 2.5 weeks now. You're all back now in your regular jobs, in your regular flow of things. We've done the one-on-one sessions where I've asked you for feedback, and now the floor is open for you to ask questions so that we can understand a little bit more about where you'd like to go or what you'd like to learn more about or anything like that. So, floor is yours. If you'd like to speak, go ahead. It's a completely open floor.
Let me start. Okay, so yeah, the bootcamp was amazing. I think that we are already doing that you said, Mogashi. We are already uh, maintaining friendship. I think the group was amazing, and in my case, it was great to experience how a good group makes everything easier, and how it was a real good experience. Yeah. So thank you for that. My first question will be, so for the ones that we are working not in with three, which are the best platforms to start moving and to get some visibility of who we are in order to can move from industry.
Mhm. I'm just writing this down. What are the best platforms to get experience?
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. I can answer that question straight away. And that's very valuable. Hey, Erica, have you moved yet? You were moving, right, to another location in South America? You moved?
Finally,
You moved?
finally. Yes, I arrived last night to Buenos Aires.
Oh, congratulations.
Mm,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Congrats. I hope you settle in okay. It's very nice for you to join the call. So thank you. So to answer your first question, Emilia and Erica, because you just jumped on, and Christoph, also please feel free to chime in. Dulcie as well, and Lucas as well. Please do not let me answer all of these questions, okay? So um, to answer your first question, where are the platforms? Now I'll share my own personal story. Is that my whole journey into this ecosystem started by joining the Bitcoin design community. I will add the link to the Bitcoin design community in the chat, but I think all of you are already in the Bitcoin design community because we had the discussions in the channel, the pre-learning discussions in the education channel. Now, the Bitcoin design community for me personally was my honest entry into this ecosystem, What it gave me an opportunity to do is it gave me an opportunity to go into different projects and feel and experience what it's like to work on Bitcoin open source projects. Now, there's the majority of projects that come into the Bitcoin community Discord are open source projects. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to just show up on phone calls, which are product phone calls. And it then allows you to basically, assist in terms of UX or in terms of research. The teams and the projects are very open. Now, what then happened for me personally is I started to notice that I enjoyed the research angle the most, and I started to gravitate towards that and just very organically start to help on projects from a research angle because that's my personal interest. Um, there are many projects in the community. If you hang around in the community a bit, you will feel and you will poke and you will prod which projects are open for collaboration, which projects are looking for people. There's also the opportunities channel as well. So that is my personal story of how I entered in. Um, it offers you the opportunity to communicate directly with the people in the project. The longest ongoing project in the Bitcoin design community is, yeah, they're Christoph sending a link. The longest ongoing project in Bitcoin design community is Bitcoin Core app, which I've also been involved in, but I haven't been involved in the last few months because I've been busy with the boot camps. But Christoph leads that project, and there's already, I think, one or two UX designers there. So the best way is to feel, because working in open source Bitcoin, it has a, I'm sure some of you got a bit of a feeling it's kind of a little bit different to working in a traditional sort of commercial environment. So it's very nice for you and empowering for you to go into projects, to feel around, to dig around. It's similar to what you did in the boot camp, but now you have the opportunity to do that over a longer term, and you have the opportunity to do that online. You don't have to fly anywhere, you don't have to physically be anywhere. You can just contribute online and jump on the calls. We have a Bitcoin design community calendar, and if you subscribe to that calendar, you will see the regular calls that are happening, which is open to everyone. Everyone can join those calls. It's not closed. Sometimes projects have calls, so you can just jump on those calls. You can show up, you can say, hey, my name is Emilia, I'm here, I'm a UX designer, la da da da, and just feel if you like the project. And what the funnest thing is if you get to work with people who you really like and who your personality really gels with, you want to contribute more. So it's good for you as well with your skill set to say, okay, I kind of like this project, but it's not very organized, or I like this project more. They need more research here, so I'll go here. So you can choose your area of interest. Lucas, Christoph, Dulce, please feel free to jump in to add on to anything, because I obviously see it from one perspective.
Yeah, that was a great overview, Mo. I would just like to add that sometimes people feel like there's this huge pressure that they need to start contributing right away. But actually, a very super helpful things for project is for someone to just use their application or just show up and answer questions, just join a conversation, just hang out. It is a very, very casual thing. So you don't need to feel the pressure that you need to like deliver designs right away or pick up some complicated issues or so. Because it is a lot about building relationships with people and finding a comfortable place, making sure the other people are comfortable with your contributions, that they understand what you can do and all these things. So it can be a pretty relaxed thing to do. I think you need to be a little bit stubborn. And Mo, you definitely had that at the beginning. You showed up and you kept showing up and you started picking up things and you asked lots of questions. And I think that was something that helped you a lot and still helps you today, I would say.
And one very important thing is don't be afraid and don't feel silly for asking questions. When I first joined this ecosystem like 3-4 years ago, and I jumped on Bitcoin Core app, I didn't really know what they were talking about, and I just kept on asking questions, and I probably asked the same question about the same topic on 5 different calls, and it's perfectly okay. There's the people who work in the space, at least the projects that I've contributed with, they have a lot of patience to answer the questions. They'll really try to get you to understand the project. They'll even send you documents so you can understand technical aspects of the project as well.
And one thing that I would add is I was at a conference the last 3 days this week, and I've heard it again. I've heard it many times. A lot of projects do not know really how to address designers. They want to have design support, but they don't really know what designers can do or how to talk to them about things, how to lay out different tasks. So if you can just lay things out for them, or and be a little bit proactive there, I think that's also a good benefit.
I'm also going to send the link to the community calendar in the chat as well, because that will give you. We've had some really nice calls with many projects across the ecosystem, so they're set up quite frequently in the Bitcoin design community, and the developers jump on. They're very happy to collaborate. They're very happy to learn from you. So yeah, we need more UX designers in the space. So I hope that answers your first question, Emilia. Please feel free. Anyone wants to go next. Maybe we do one question per person and then we bounce back, as we go along. Mariana.
Okay, I have some. The first was similar of the Emmys. Where can we find job opportunities in this open source environment? And the second, I think it's different. How to approach people, companies to have this kind of opennesses. I mean, how to deal with the fine line between open source contribution and regular work.
Mm-hmm. What was the next one? How to deal with?
How to deal with this line between open source contribution and regular work.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes we contribute for a project, but how can we approach them to, oh, I need a job, I need to be paid, is difficult. I don't know.
Dulce would like to speak.
Yeah, just remember, like there is a misunderstanding that is free open source, and that means nobody get paid. Like the fact that it's open source or free open source is from freedom, and you don't have to do things for free. That's a first thing. Then like there, like I I don't know how many times, but I have to explain this. Like free open source doesn't mean free labor for us. It's true. Like sometimes there is this meritocracy system. Oh, and in Bitcoin more because this proof of work, and I'm just gonna say like a lot of Bitcoiners have so much money that they can just afford to don't get paid. But that's not the reality in the global south, like Africa, Latin America, or Asia. Then you can always you can you if it's open source doesn't mean it has to be free. The project can be open source, but it's still like you can scope and say, hey, this is my fees, or is there any bounties for this project? That's one solution. The other is like a project can be open source, and if you really like a project in the Bitcoin space or in the Web3 space, you can say, "Hey, I would love to work in your project. Maybe I do X, Y, Z, and if you like it, we can keep collaborating." But then you reach out to the company. And then I hope I can help, or my answer help. Otherwise, you can rephrase the question again.
Something that also happens, just to tag off what Dulce says, is there has been this almost the stigma in the open source community to work a lot for free, and to build this proof of work. Now, I'll share my personal story. I moved from running an e-commerce store where I was the sole entrepreneur running everything from design to SEO to everything, to then studying UX design. So I was earning a full-time income from my online store while I then volunteered for free in the Bitcoin design community. Now, I was very fortunate to be able to still have an income, and then have the support of the income of my partner, but not everyone is in that situation. So you have to be very mindful of choosing to contribute in a way that feels good for you. If you're not able to contribute in a way, um, where you're able to contribute a few hours, and that's not taking away from your main full-time work, to gain that experience, to build that proof of work, that has been the traditional route of most people who've entered into this ecosystem. That being said, many of you who joined the boot camp are not junior designers. A lot of you have a lot of experience. So some of you could very much well just go into a project, get a little bit of experience, and then just say, okay, it's clear that that we have a good personality fit. How can we work together long term? What happens very often is, as Christoph said, it's a lot about building relationships. The project that who you help, you'll build a relationship with the team, and if that relationship feels good for both places, it will happen very organically, that they'll say like, this is great. And bear in mind that a lot of the projects that you contribute to, one of the questions you can ask for in the beginning to know if you're able to be paid for your work is your project funded? Are you currently looking for funding? That's quite an important question, because if you ask that question, if the project is funded, it's likely that they may have a budget for a UX. If they're looking for funding, then you're entering in at an early stage, which could also be very positive for you, because then when they do get funding, you then enter in as the lead UX designer. And another thing is, in terms of your second question, in terms of time management. Now, there is so much of a need for UX designers in this ecosystem, that if you even contribute 1 hour of your dedicated time, and that doesn't take away too much from your full-time job, whether that's jumping on a call, whether that's doing an hour UX review of the interface, that is going to still help a project, and you can still build a proof of work by doing an hour every week, which is 4 hours a month. And you can then build that proof of work, and you can let the projects know, like, I'm not available full time, but I'm here, and I'm going to build the proof of work for you. Something that we're still figuring out in the Bitcoin Design Foundation, that we're hoping to get funding in the future, is to see how we can take someone who is in the bootcamp and move them into the ecosystem in a very elegant way, because we don't want to lose all of this valuable talent. So we're still, as we mentioned, full transparency. This is the second UX bootcamp that we ever did. The first one was in Kenya. This is the second one. At the moment, we'd like to figure out how we can get, as the Bitcoin Design Foundation, funding in, so we can actually support you guys and bring people into the ecosystem, for the longer term. At the same time, I think that all of you noticed that the projects who specifically, like the hackathon, many of you participate, they were so keen, like, to have you there as UX designers. So there's a very keen signal from the ecosystem that everyone wants you. But as Dulce said, we have to be very mindful of our time and what we contribute, because many of you are in full-time jobs. And if you have to feel into what suits your personal situation. Lucas.
Yeah, and there are different ways of approaching this like transition to the Bitcoin space. Uh, First of all, like as Mogashni said, and Dulce also mentioned, like there are different projects with different levels of funding. So I even sent a few days ago from to Mo like an opportunity at Lava. Lava is an open source project, but they also have a company behind it. So open source projects don't necessarily mean it's like fully grassroots, someone starting their project like on GitHub. Some of these projects have a business model and have funding from venture capital. So Lava is one example where they actually have funding to actually hire a designer. So they have that open position. And then there are a second tier of like projects like let's say BTC server where they have a foundation behind it, and the foundation has funding. So if you they probably won't like open a job position for a designer very soon, but if you start contributing 1 hour a week and it starts showing up and start to, like showing value to them, maybe at some point they will offer you a bounty, or at some point they will have like some small funding for you to start contributing a few more hours a week. So it depends a lot. And then there's another tier of project which is like someone started in their basement wallet, and right now they don't have even funding for them, or maybe they have a grant from OpenSats to work on that wallet. I don't know if OpenSats is giving grants to designers or only developers, but it's always like you don't lose nothing by trying to apply for a grant on OpenSats or different organizations like Beatrice, Vintune, B4OS, and like go and like you have an idea or you have a project you're contributing to, go and apply and say, hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing design work on this. Like, I would like to get X amount for 10 hours of my week or 20 hours of my week. And then you slowly progress into more like as the ecosystem evolves. Because if you think about the developer ecosystem, I've been in the developer funding ecosystem since maybe 2019 at least, following this space. And in the beginning, I saw some very valuable developers who were like desperately looking for funding and they couldn't find. And now I think what 4 or 5 years later, we're in a different position in the developer funding ecosystem where I think we have actually more money than we have talent. We're that's why Vintune and B4OS and Bitrust and Bichala are doing like developer training programs, because they're now actually looking for talent to fund. But the design ecosystem is younger in the sense that 3 years ago, when Mo started in the design community, it was just a community with Christoph and who else? Some two or three other guys who got some grants from Spyro. But then that was it. Now there's the Design Foundation, and the Design Foundation is looking for money for funding to fund even more designers and doing the boot camps, etc. So it's in a different level, a different stage of maturity. But if you follow along and you stick around, I think there will be a lot of opportunities for all of you.
Lucas, you worded it perfectly. Is that the design ecosystem is at its infancy right now, so it's like 5 to 6 years behind the developer ecosystem. And what we're doing right now is really proving and proving the value of design and educating about the value of design and how design and development can basically go hand in hand, because we're all after the same goal. So it is at its infancy, but it's a very good time to be now in the ecosystem. And something very important is when you contribute to a project, is to build that proof of work and to make sure that your proof of work is public. So whether you choose x.com or whether you choose Noster to show your proof of work, or whether you have any other blogging platform, it's very important to build a proof of work, because projects will look for the proof of work, and seeing the proof of work means trust. So if they see what we have in the Bitcoin design communities, we have calls which are public, which are open to everyone. Now we record all of those calls and we put them on YouTube, so you can at any point go to a potential employer and you can say, hey, I've been contributing to this project for the last 3 months. Here's me. You attach all of the links to all of the calls, you show your proof of work, you show your links to Figma, you show your research, you build that proof of work. It's very important to build that and to note everything. Like, even if it's in a Google document, you have to have that in the end when you eventually go into any project. And trust me, you can build proof of work with contributing 1 hour every week. But the thing with this space is a lot of us are so passionate about what we do that we go down the rabbit hole and we end up spending many more hours than just 1 hour, just because it's so fun. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yes.
Anyone else? Oh, okay. Maybe it's helpful to read out what Dulce and Christoph are writing here in the comments, because there's some gold here. So Christoph says, my transition was 3 years ago, was about 3 years from my first contribution to working full time in this space. That time was amazing for learning and finding my way around at a pace that worked for me. I also didn't push it and I was waiting for the right opportunity. Very different journeys for everyone. And then Lucas has actually sent now 2 jobs. And Dulce said she started her own project that also works. So you can also start your own project, which is harder, but you have more freedom. And now at Liberia, we can build new projects because we have developers. Yeah. The space is totally open. You can also build something on your own. Like I should also shill that we have a designathon coming up in the Bitcoin design community, which we're now actually she's done we don't have designers. We actually have an online designathon happening in the Bitcoin design community, and there was a very big interest for the designathon from people because it's very accessible to attend a designathon remotely. So we're actually now in the planning stages of that designathon. We've done, I think, 1 or 2 successfully. It's pretty much been Christoph and myself who've been yeah, pretty much Christoph and myself have been the core organizers of the designathon. And what happens with the designathon is that the designers and the leads of the projects, yeah, we organized one. The designers and the leads of the projects get, and this designathon is probably happening. I don't know the dates off the top of my head, but Christoph probably knows. It's happening pretty much around the corner. And sometimes what happens is you might have a very good synergy with the developers who you're in the designathon with, and then they will just go apply for funding, and then Bob's your uncle, you have a job. So it's happened many times that long-term projects in the ecosystem have literally started from designathons, and that's what happens. So designathons and hackathons, I might add. Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, Rubens.
Yeah, so you said about building proof of work,
Yeah.
and how can we build this proof of work? Just like posting about what we are doing on Twitter, for example, creating a portfolio, this kind of things.
You know, I'm gonna just share personally because we don't have like a rule book or anything that's written. For me, how I created proof of work was just working publicly in the Bitcoin design community. There are many projects who are in the Bitcoin design community who they're asking for UX advice, or they're like, oh, look at this. Like 3 years ago, I just put out this Google document of this UX research plan, which in my opinion was extremely amateur. And I was like, hey, everyone, look at my UX research plan. Come help me. And then people just came and then they helped. So you can build your proof of work in the Bitcoin design community forum where there are people who are watching, like their projects who might not be so vocal in the community, but they're like watching and seeing who's posting and seeing who's commenting. You can also you can choose what feels good for you, or you can say, look, I don't have the time to be online on Discord forums. I'm just going to contribute by joining in on a call 1 hour a week. I'm going to record all the calls I was on. I'm going to record all the Figma files I worked on. I'm going to record everything. You just save it in a Google document, and that's your proof of work. So you don't have to, proof of work is also just, it's showing up on a call, it's doing some research, it's doing a UX analysis. That's all proof of work. And then just share it. And when you share things, like tag the project on Twitter or Nostr, just tag them. I mean, it works. Like, just the space is completely open. Yeah. Any other questions? Let's see. Okay. Christoph said that was the first one we organized. Yeah, the next one is going to be in mid-May. So mid-May, I would say, keep your eyes open. Once we have the Designathon website live, I can even share it in the WhatsApp chat group, because then you guys can decide if you'd like to participate. Okay, so Yakin, hey, I'm more interested in entrepreneurship in the Bitcoin space more than looking for a job. Are there grants by OpenSats or Fulgar Ventures focused on new products based on Bitcoin and enhancing onboarding? Yakin, maybe you'd like to elaborate on your question.
Yeah, for sure. So I feel like most of for example, most of the projects in the hackathon back in the BTC conference, which was, I miss being there. Most of them were very focused on tech, right? On
Mhm,
improving on tech, but not so much on improving on onboarding or
mhm,
making regular normies feel comfortable to buy their first Bitcoin or their first sats.
mhm.
So I'm wondering if you guys know of any like venture capitalists in the Bitcoin space or any like funds that might be interested in funding projects related to enhancing onboarding, more than working with Nostr Wallet Connect or on the tech side, more like on the design side.
Hmm. Christoph, Lucas, I don't know if you would like to answer.
When you say onboarding, you mean educational projects or
Educational, but also
No,
like
onboarding, like Bitcoin onboarding, first time
yeah,
users. Okay, BTC plus plus is a technical conference for very technical developers, like senior kind of maxi developers, right? It's not the place to go. Like they build features for themselves. That's it. I think the answer there is not right now, but that doesn't mean you cannot dock doors with your own project or inside the Bitcoin design community. You can create the standards for onboarding people. Nowadays, there is a research, I think Locke did a research on onboarding Bitcoin. But like, for example, that is something you can take on and you can apply to HRF to do your own research and do something public. So Paulo from Brazil, living in Germany, he won 2 times a grant from HRF to do research. Then that's another thing you can do. Like you can say who you are. You can ask Mogashi or myself or Lucas for a recommendation, and you get a grant. Maybe it's not going to be a big grant, but you can start from there. Um, Normally this kind of job, what you say, that is onboarding, how improve onboarding for new users, normally is made by wallets for 2 or 3 days and then they forgot.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
mostly wallets do that. I don't know what Christoph think, but it's mostly like Beach Wallet did a great job. Few wallets do that, but there is no like how to make Bitcoin onboarding easy. I don't remember, but maybe Christoph or Mogashi remember any other projects. But I think it's a great project to lead and to get a proposal and get a grant for it.
Yeah, I think it depends a lot on what exactly you're thinking when you're saying like a Bitcoin onboarding project. Because if you think about it, for example, I'll give 3 examples here. GP.app just won the how's it called, the pronouncing the Blab Lab. They just did like I forgot the name of the competition, like a startup competition, and I think the winner was GP.app, which is a game like with some sats incentives and rewards. There's also Thunder Games that like makes like lightning games. There's this Miles Bitcoin, which is like an app where they count how many steps you're taking every day, and then they give you sats for that. And there's some other rewards that they're adding. So Smiles, for example, or S Miles, I don't know how it's pronounced. They were recently in the Wolf Accelerator program. So it's actually going the startup route, looking for funding and venture capital. So there's different routes. Like there's also the open source route, which is even tougher. The open source route is even tougher because it has less opportunities and less funding, especially for new types of projects. But you can always try. You can always start a project and go after funding. Like it doesn't hurt anyone to apply for funding. Like the maximum you will get is a no, or you're going to be ignored. But like, you don't lose anything by trying and applying for different programs and applying for different accelerator programs and going the startup route and looking for funding, or even starting small. Like, go on a Geyser Fund. Geyser Fund is like a crowdfunding platform, and like, show your project there. For example, let's take what was the name of the project from Mariana and Lucas at
Money
the
Badger.
Money Badger? Like, I heard you guys want to continue working on that, and maybe the first thing you want to do, like, before you actually get some real funding, is go on a Geyser Fund and try. Like, hey, Geyser Fund, write your project there and see if the community is going to fund that project. Like, in the beginning it's going to be very small, but it's a start. Like, it's a crowdfunding platform. But if you like promote it on Twitter and talk about it on like a podcast or whatever, you're going to slowly get attention from people. And maybe that's not going to be enough for you to get funding from Money Badger specifically, but you're going to be showing your work, you're going to be showing yourself and showing, and at some point maybe another opportunity will come. So that's like what Mo was saying when she was talking about showing your proof of work. Is just being around and showing and working on this, promoting that, and tweeting about it, and participating in the Discord community for the different projects and different organizations, and showing your work. And that's how you do.
And Christoph shared here that he's something that he did for Monero. I think it's interesting to hear the different entry points with which different people entered in the ecosystem. Christoph, I don't know if you would like to share more about that.
Oh yeah, that was just an example what I did. I just took this wallet, and in my city here, they had this monthly event where people get together and do user testing and eat pizza. So some people show up and they bring their projects, and other people, they just show up and test. And it's just random people, and you just sit at the table and people show up and they test your application and you observe them and maybe ask them a question. Then I summarized everything and then I shared it with that community, and they found it was super helpful. It's something you can independently just do a little bit of user research, and I got some pizza out of it too. And yeah, you can just take these initiatives, and it is such a simple thing, but yet it is the community, the developers, they treat this like something amazing, because they're like, this is actual research that was done. This is the quotes that people said, the responses people had. It is much more effective to communicate via artifacts like that in order to make design change, where sometimes if you just said it yourself, it would just never come across. So just I think that's some simple stuff that can be done. And I would just add to something else that was said, something that I found that I learned in my initial 3 years is to fix the things that people complain about. If if there's some hot topic and everyone's complains about this thing or that thing in the community or in the whole ecosystem or so, try to fix that, because that's on everyone's minds, and you're most likely to get lots of support. Maybe you have your own amazing ideas and no one talks about it, and maybe it's super important. Totally do that too. Your life is just a little bit easier if you just pay attention to the vibe of the moment, the problems that people have at the moment, whether it's in a project, in a community, or elsewhere, and try to just fix those problems.
And another thing is that this ecosystem, although it's a niche, you have UX design, and now that you have this freedom technology within UX design, within this freedom technology of Bitcoin, there are, like, you think about, imagine a spider web of like 20 to 30 other niches. Now, within this spider web, there, as I mentioned, there's like 20 to 30 other niches. Now, when you kind of play around and you poke around, you can kind of feel into what niche within this niche is pulling you the most. And when you feel that, alignment with that niche, you'll just like go for it. But if you have the opportunity to play around and to poke around in projects and to feel for your own inner alignment, you then take your own talent to contributing to something that you want the most. And now, when I entered into this ecosystem, I didn't even know that there were all these like sub niches and you know, some people are more interested, you know, in the education angle, some people are more interested in privacy angle, you know, you have the activism angle. So there's so many different angles, you know, and within those angles then you have UX design, or you have, if you want to do more research, you know, there's e-cash, there's everything like across the spectrum. So the Bitcoin design community will, you know, expose you if you jump on the calls. We usually keep things very open. There's no hierarchy. We're like, no one's the guru here. We're here to listen. We're here to learn from everyone. You can feel, you know, kind of into the project by just jumping on those calls. And to answer Mariana's question is, where can we find open source projects to contribute? Now, I would say in the Bitcoin design community, in the opportunities channel, you have people coming constantly asking for contribution help. At the same time, you can also just take the bulls by its horns. I'm sure there's a website that exists where every single open source Bitcoin project exists. I think there's a website. I think John's Bahari built it. I'm not sure, but I think there is a website that exists where all Bitcoin open source projects are. And if you go on there, you can just be like, oh, this project looks interesting, I'm going to go see if they're doing calls. You can literally just message the project lead and say, hey, I'm a UX designer, your project looks cool, I want to contribute. And they'll be like, okay, cool, let's go. So, you know, it's completely open. You might have more direct contact in the Bitcoin design community, but there's nothing stopping you from just looking at a list of open source Bitcoin projects and saying, I think this is interesting, I want to jump on one of their calls. And another very important thing in building proof of work is, Mariana mentioned GitHub, is if you make a UX contribution or suggestion, go and find the GitHub repository of that project and actually file it as an issue or reply to an issue that's already been filed. Because then you're also building proof of work. Because what often happens is, if that project is getting funding from OpenSAS or HRF or any of the other organizations, they will see your name in the GitHub and they'll see, oh, look, Emilia has been responding for the last 3 months, and she's the UX designer on that project. And they'll be like, yeah, okay, of course, Amelia gets a, you know, Amelia should be supported for her work. So you make it very obvious that you're contributing. And one of the ways to do that is to obviously file issues on GitHub as well, on the GitHub repo of that project. Make it really obvious that you're contributing. Um, Okay, Laura says SatsCon I felt it was less technical and more innovative. Christoph said, yeah, Christoph is mentioning the newsletter. I don't know if you'd like to dive into that as well, Christoph.
Oh, I would just say there's the Bitcoin Design newsletter, there's the Albi newsletter, there are various other newsletters that try to post about what's happening in the ecosystem, and a lot of times they write about certain applications adding new features or applications launching, or that's just a good way to learn what's going on and discover projects. I subscribe to several of those.
Yeah, we write a newsletter every 3 weeks in the Bitcoin design community. We've missed one now for the last 2 weeks. Usually we're very good with writing, with getting the newsletter out. But in the newsletter, it's just showing about, you know, what's going on, what projects working with what. There's also the design help section, which we put in and we say, hey, we're looking for design help or design eyes on this specific section of the design guide, or this project is looking for help or for eyes on this particular thing. And you know, there's, as I mentioned, there's a lot of you here who have a lot of experience. So, you know, you've entered in now at this very large umbrella, but within this umbrella, all of these sub niches. And if you really find a sub niche that you're really drawn to, it will be passion that will move you forward. And eventually you will, you know, by default, just get funded or get paid for that. But just because it's very passion driven. So, you know, that's the joy of kind of, if you have the ability to kind of dig around a bit and feel around a bit, it's a nice thing to do. Lucas is sending more links here. I don't know if you want to share about those.
I don't even remember what I sent more. I sent a bunch of links.
Yeah, there's so many
Yeah,
links.
I'm sending other roles that I saw, like other design roles that are open. So just
Yeah.
go and apply. I always say, like, you never lose anything by applying. Even if you're not like gonna join that company, you're gonna meet the people behind it, and maybe by talking with them, you're gonna find another opportunity. So always apply if you're interested in working in Bitcoin space. And all these roles that I sent, most of them are actually open source projects. And even if they don't, even if they are not, like, you can always start at a Bitcoin company, like that is a for-profit closed source company, and then in your free time you go and continue working on your open source proof of work.
So Amelia, you're gonna go visit Lucas in the dev hangout? Go. Go visit him.
I will. I will.
Yeah, go say hi. There we go. Augustine.
Yes. Well, I want to share like our experience with Mostro. We had like Rubens and Laura. We Mostro was one of the application we was researching about in the hackathon. Sorry, in the UX bootcamp, and we get in contact with them. So we have like weekly designs meetings. So we are very actually another designer joined us. Another designer joined us from their team. It was a early contributor, and we set like a roadmap for them, a design roadmap. So we are advancing like smoothly, but we are advancing on that. But in some point we were talking with our design team, like to apply to a grant to to in order to accelerate the process to to do that roadmap. So they share. I mean, we were thinking if how to apply to a grant, and they say that they will support us in that application, and also they say like in some they encourage us to contribute to it to other projects also, in order to have like a proof of work that we were talking about that. So that's my question is about specifically like about grants. I know uh, Human Rights Foundation, but how we can apply together like as a design team to a grant, and we are like now 4 designers to one project. It makes sense or not? Maybe how we can deal with that. Uh,
I don't have any personal experience for, like, how can I say, being involved in a specific product and then applying. Yeah, exactly. That's a lot of designers for one project. So I don't have any experience of working on one specific product and then applying for a grant with that specific product that I'm working on. So I can't speak from that sort of standpoint. But I do agree with Dulce and Lucas that 4 designers for one project is a lot.
It's possible to apply as a okay. I'm gonna say one person told me it's possible to apply to OpenSats as a group of developers or group of designers for one project. But then turns out in OpenSat at least is 9 people who vote, right? And then one person tell you one thing, another person tell you another thing. Um, I think the space is not enough mature yet. Then if you want to apply it as a group, you can say, hey, we get this amount, let's say is, I don't know, just for the sake of time, $100, right? Then you will have to do a bounty dashboard or something like that. It is very complicated, like 4 people working, and specifically in the Mostro case, because I am so how involved, you need to make sure that the person that is in charge, that actually is Francisco, actually is going to let you run this roadmap. Myself, that I'm the product manager, I'm not sure if Francisco is going to approve all my proposals. Then I think step by step. But yeah, I agree. Like 4 designers for one project is so many. That's too many chefs in the kitchen. Then
Yeah.
I would say actually decide and just it's better. Like that project only need 1 or 2 designers. That would be my advice. But other thing you can do is be 5 people for many projects. That's different, and it's kind of what the Bitcoin design community. But you do Bitcoin design community for Latin American projects, and that's totally different. If I don't know if I'm explaining correct, but basically you ask funding, but for a lot of projects for a lot of designer, and you work on bounties. You do something, but there is always going to be a central part that it has to say this bounty is X price, this bounty is X price, and it's very, very hard for that central part.
Bye, Lija.
Bye, Lydia.
Yeah, good
I guess to add on to that point, my guess would be that HRF and OpenSats and other funding entities, they're not going to completely judge you based on how many people you are and how you organize. They'll probably leave that to you. The bigger thing is probably more, let's call it your product strategy. If you can say, we're serving a very, very important use case, it's this and this, there are all these problems we see in this area, and we're going to make it happen. We have the right technology, we have a good mix, and user experience is really important for us because they're going to drive adoption. And if you have a really good product strategy and it's very clear that the product is needed and whatnot, then they're probably not going to. And especially if you've done work before, you've proven that whatever setup you have works for you, then they're probably not going to say like, well, we'll support you, but you can only have 2 designers. They probably won't say that.
Yeah, but the amount is going to be the same.
It's more about the amount. Yeah, it's more about the amount. Like if you all going to be like 4 full-time designers
that's right.
working on Monster, it's probably, it depends on how much you're required as a full-time designer. Like maybe you're very early in your career and you're in Brazil or Argentina, and then you make like $500 a month is like a lot for you. Then maybe you're gonna find someone that is willing to give you $2,000 a month, and then you have like 4 full-time designers getting $500 a month. But like depending on where you are in your career, that's gonna be very low payment for you. So it always depends on like what you're actually looking for, or maybe you just want to like dedicate 10 hours of your week to Mostro, all of you, and if you get $500